Very good afternoon to all of you joining us today on a Wednesday. A good day to those of you who are joining us from Europe. My name is Samrat. This is our final webinar for the Maurice Grosser-Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship 2022 call. We had a very excellent webinar on how to write a successful MSCA-PF proposal last week. I think most of you have been part of that. For those who haven't, we have a recording of that. We had a very nice presenter, an expert speaker who gave us a great overview about the structure of the proposal and also very insightful tips and advice. Now, the great thing is that that excellent speaker is also with us here today. And in a minute, I will introduce her again, and we will today have a dedicated Q&A session with her, where she has already received questions from you who are planning to apply for the fellowship. And our speaker, Eugenia, will go through those questions and give you more detailed answers. We also will take some live questions if time permits, towards the end of this 1 hour, 60 minutes Q&A session. But before we hand over the microphones to our speaker, Eugenia, our main speaker, I would like to welcome Shantala Haridas. She's the Director of India Bioscience, with whom we are partnering in this series. This has been really an excellent partnership. And Shantala, please say a few welcoming words also to our participants today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samrat. So I echo Samrat's sentiments. A very warm welcome to all of you at today's session. I'm hoping many of you are kind of repeat attendees in the sense that you joined us on the 12th as well. I hope you had a chance to kind of mull over the amazing tips and, the framework that Eugenia shared with us last time for how to write an MSCA-PF application. And you've shared your questions, and this is just such a great opportunity for people who are, for all of you who are writing this proposal to fine tune and to give that little edge to your application. And we're really lucky to have Eugenia joining us again, to kind of having gone through your questions and, now kind of giving customized, this webinar is really, this session is really a session of customized information based on the questions that have come in. So with that, a very warm welcome. We're really excited to see you. We are very, very appreciative of the response that the last webinar got. In fact, we were just chatting before we went live at the huge number of questions that came in. And we hope that through these 2 sessions, you managed to get the clarity that you need. And now, just out of curiosity for Samrat, Eugenia, and me, we were just wondering, it would be really nice to know how many of you are actually applying for the MSCA-PF this time, the call that's going to close on the 14th of September. So if you are thinking of applying, if you're in the process of putting an application, if you can just click the raise hand icon, that'll give us a really nice sense of how many of you are applying. And I see hands are just flying up. So this is, oh wow, a lot of you. Okay, Eugenia. So I think, these are all kind of prospective applicants. A great platform to kind of continue the discussion for last time. So thank you all for that. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Samrat, and over to the rest of the session today.
Wow, thank you so much, Shantala. And yeah, we were really curious to know now, like, who of you is really applying, and we see that there are many hands. So Eugenia, without any further delay, the audience is ready for you. Please, take over and let's start. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for organizing this very useful webinar. And it's a pleasure for me again to speak at this session. Yes, I see that participants are quite interested in postdoctoral fellowships. So it is really very interesting to collaborate with you and to participate to those webinars. Just to start answering to your questions, I would like first to mention a document that might be important for you as a participants. Probably you already know it, but just how can I put okay, so I will put a link in the chat on the document which was created by the European network of the MSCA NCPs, which is called Handbook, Postdoctoral Fellowships Handbook. And this document includes a lot of useful information concerning the content of proposal. First, well, the technical information concerning the proposal formatting and layout and what is expected, but also tips on how to better write your proposal. So I really advise you to read carefully this document, and I think you will find there answers to many of your questions when you are wondering what information to better put in different parts. So this should be a really useful document for you, I think. Another point before to go to the questions is that last time at the previous webinar, you asked me about the participation statistics, and I did not have all the presentations close to me, so I will present them now. So these are the statistics from the last MSCA call. So okay, no, it was not this document. Okay, so here are the statistics of participation to the Postdoctoral Fellowships 2021 call. And just here you can see some numbers. In total, 1,156 proposals were selected for funding and invited to sign the grant agreement. 286 proposals were on the ranking list, on the reserve list, excuse me. 2,195 proposals were ranked above a 70% threshold, and so cannot be resubmitted in 2022, while 4,310 proposals were ranked above the threshold of 70% and can be considered for funding. And there were 74 proposals which were not eligible, and 19 proposals which were not admissible. In total, there were 8,356 proposals received for this previous call, among which 7,521 for European fellowships and 835 for global fellowships. So as you can see in the table at the bottom of this page, there is a decrease compared to the previous year, which is probably due to the scientific age restriction. Here you have also statistics of proposals submitted by panel compared to 2020. Okay, so you can see that there is actually more or less similar decrease, while it can still vary for some, like for echo, there was a 40% difference compared to 2020. And here you have the number of proposals submitted per country, also decreased since 2020 call. So here there is statistics for associated countries. So the country of the host institution. Then here, this might be interesting for you. There are statistics concerning the scientific age of researchers. And as you can see that for that eligible proposals submitted for European fellowships call, among those proposals, the most represented are proposals coming from researchers which have 0 years of experience after the PhD, which have had just graduated. And while for global fellowships, a bit more represented were the proposals coming from researchers with 1 year after the PhD, which is a small difference. So 627 proposal requested a non-academic placement, which is 750% of total. And yeah, and here you have finally the statistics concerning the proposals retained for funding by panel. So on the left, on the right, you have the statistics on the number of proposals retained for funding, eligible and retained for funding by panel. And on the left, you have the success rates by panel for European fellowships. And here you have the numbers, the similar numbers, but for global fellowships. Here there is a number of proposals submitted and retained per country of host institution, and the success rate by country you can see on the bottom. So for France it is 14 and 7%, so which puts us at the 5th place. So here you can see the numbers concerning the funding distributed by panel for European fellowships and for global fellowships. The quite interesting slide concerning the researchers' gender. And you can see here the number of by panel, the number of males, and the ranking list, and female researchers and the ranking list. And so you have majority gender on the main list and the highest success rate, and actually more represented are the panels where women have higher success rate. And there are also some quite interesting conclusions. I think that the panel with the highest number of retained proposals is the panel social sciences, actually. And social sciences and life sciences panel had almost half of all funded proposals. Then I would like also to draw your attention to the most successful host countries here. And at the bottom, top 5 nationalities of researchers for funded proposals, which are Italy, Spain, India, China, and Germany. So I think that's all I wanted to show you concerning the call statistics. And I've also been asked concerning the statistics on the nationalities of the researchers. So I have this in different document that I will share now. So this is the document with the statistics concerning also 2021 call with proposals by nationality of researchers submitted and retained. So here we can see the EU member states, and among EU member states, the most represented and the most active are Italian and Spanish researchers. Then there are associated countries with Turkish researchers being most active, associated and candidate countries. And yeah, so the third countries, you have actually, you can see that Indians are far beyond everyone with more than 1,000 proposals submitted, and also first nationality from the third countries by the number of proposals retained for funding, followed by Chinese with less proposals submitted but quite good success rate, and Brazil. So, yes, here are the numbers you asked me for. And in total, for this call, there were 8,354 proposals submitted and 1,156 retained for funding. Okay, so now I will go to the main part of this webinar, which are your questions. And I'll start with the first question. First question was, please give a demo on how to use the template for B1, like what all things to delete and what to keep, especially the header and the footer. So I will show it to you right now. So here you have the template. And you should actually delete all the instructions. Okay, so for example, at the beginning of your template, when you open it, you have different instructions. Like all this information should be deleted. It's only for you, the explanations. So you delete all this information, and your proposal should start with this page. So the excellence, you put no cover page, no table of content. Your proposal should start with part 1, excellence. And here you should delete again all instructions. For example, all this you delete. Okay. And you can just keep part B1, excellence, heading, and subheading, but then you delete all these instructions. Okay, so you delete instructions and you keep headings and subheadings. At the top, you insert the call identifier and the call name. And at the bottom of the page, you put the page number in the indicated format like this, part B, page 5 of 13. And there was also another question concerning the proposal layout. So I will answer to it now. Are there any formatting requirements in part B, font size, spacing? So I will show you. Okay, so for the it is actually all this is explained both at the beginning of the proposal template and also in the handbook I sent to you. So the page size is A4. All margins should be at least 15 millimeters. The reference font for the body text is Times New Roman Times Times New Roman for Apple platforms, or Nimbus Roman number 9 for Linux distributions. And the font size is 11 points for the main text. For the tables, you have right to minimum font size 8. Okay. And for the footnotes, all reference should figure in the part B1, either at the bottom of the page or at the end of the proposal. And the font size for literature references is font size 8 or 9. So you're allowed to use charts, diagrams, figures, but all these figures related to the proposal B1 should figure in the proposal B1. So, and there was actually another question concerning this point that I will answer also right now. So there was a question concerning the possibility to include some additional annexes in the B2 part and put there some figures that could not be included into B1. And so the answer is no, it is not possible to put these additional figures in B2. So all figures related to B1 must be included into B1, and there should be no additional annexes and no hyperlinks, which is also important, only requested annexes. All right, so I will move now to another question. Which is different. I will be doing research on human participants. If I have answered the ethics and security questions in the part A, how important is it to fill additional information about ethics and security in part B, section 6 and 7? If it is important, what sort of information should I put there? So you put in the part B only additional information on ethics that you could not include in the part A. Actually, the parts dedicated to the text of the part A are limited in the number of characters. So you can, if you need to put quite detailed information, you will not have enough space in the part A. So in this case, you will put additional information into the part B. But if you think that you already explained you provided all necessary explanation in the part B, in the part A. So in this case, there is no need to fill in the part B, but just mention that all necessary explanations have been provided in the part A. So do not delete the part, in any case, do not delete the section 6 and 7 of the part B, but just write that I already provided all necessary information in the part A. Okay, and the same if you have if your project does not raise any ethical issues at all, do not delete the section 6 and 7 of the part B, but just write that my project does not raise any ethical issues. I move to the question 5 now. For some projects, especially in social sciences, sometimes the economic impacts are not so clear. Can you make any suggestions on how to explain, for example, projects in philosophy? How can we justify the economic impacts of the project? So indeed, there may be projects which actually do not have any economic impacts, or very, very long-term economic impacts, or the economic impacts which are hard to estimate. And this will concern mainly the projects in basic research. So in this case, you had just to write that my project will not have any economic impacts. But in this case, if your project does not have any economic impacts, you should justify more important impacts on science. So it is okay not to have economic impacts, but just should explain it. But also sometimes it's maybe not an easy exercise to find what can be economic impacts. And so indeed, for a project in philosophy, it is possible that there will be no economic impacts. But in some projects in social sciences, you can, for example, try to link economic impact and social impact. And I will give you here an example on the project concerning the radicalization of young people, which is project in social sciences, and the project concerns a major challenge for society. And if you work on people who work on this topic can imagine providing different recommendations to policymakers, or to security practitioners, or to education actors or schools. And this will help people working with these issues to improve their procedures, to gain more efficiency with dealing with this problem. And then it can help to save public money currently spent on dealing with these problems. So try to link social impact and economic impact. Sometimes it can be a good exercise, and particularly for projects in human and social sciences, plan dissemination actions towards policymakers, towards public administrations, and different other public and private stakeholders which may be concerned by the issues you deal with. And as I mentioned, in some other cases, there may just be no economic impacts, or very minor. So I will move now to the question 6. How to mention the societal impact of academic research in MSCA proposal. So this is very linked actually to the previous question, and I hope I already answered to it by answering to the question 5. So plan so actually academic research, I suppose you mean basic research, and because the research led in academic sector may also be quite applied and linked to society, but in any case, think about possible dissemination ways and specifically linking with potential end users, concerned stakeholders, both from academic and non-academic sector. Is the data management plan, question 7, is the data management plan mandatory for the proposal submission stage? No, it is not mandatory at the submission stage, but it will be a mandatory deliverable during the project life to be submitted before month 6 of the project. Question 8, I know that a secondment can be carried out for 1/3 period of the European fellowships, for example, 8 months for the project lasting 24 months. The answer is yes. Question 9, can the secondment be split into 2 parts in 2 different labs? Yes, it can. What is the definition of short visit? How long and how many times can it be carried out? So the European Commission doesn't provide any indication concerning the maximum duration of a short visit, but it's by definition, it is supposed to be short. So you cannot have a short visit lasting several months, okay? But even 1 month seems long for me. And the main difference between secondment and short visit, that in secondment you have a host, secondment host, you have a supervisor, secondment supervisor, and it has a specific objective and an important impact for your proposal implementation. While in the short visit, you do not have a host, and the short visit does not necessarily have to be planned at the proposal submission stage. And for example, short visit can be field work or some collaboration with not necessarily which does not request long stays or participation to conferences or workshops for dissemination activities. Question 11, how can we justify the economic impacts of the project? So again, a question on impact. Indeed, this is not very easy part to deal with. So here I would like to draw your attention to the difference between results, outcomes, and impacts. So in your project, you will have the results, which is actually what is produced in the frame of your project, some data gathered or publications or databases created or recommendations. Then you will put in place your different dissemination actions. And for example, you will go to talk to different stakeholders, talk to at conferences, and to try to raise awareness of end users on your project results. And the outcome can be the fact that, so after you did this dissemination measures, you will have the outcomes. Outcomes are actually short-term changes produced by your results. And I will take an example of the project concerning the study of obesity among children. So the results of such a project can be some recommendations and publications. Then there will come dissemination measures, and the outcome will be that the recommendations are adopted or taken into account by different public powers and implemented, for example, through changing the school canteens menu. Okay, so these will be the outcomes, and the impacts will be actually the decrease of obesity among children. And so the impacts are much long-term changes in the society, and the economic impacts will be also less money spent on dealing with this problem, or less money spent on the healthcare to prevent and to and then to care people attended by this problem. And yes, you are asked actually for the economic impacts as well as for societal impacts. You are asked to provide the indicators about, for example, the percentage of decrease of obesity in this example, and in how many countries. And so you are actually will be requested to provide the indicators concerning the magnitude and the importance of the these different impacts. And the magnitude is more about the size of the target group. So for example, how many countries you plan this will have an impact, and or maybe just in your country, in the country where you will work, or how many schools you will target, how many children will be concerned by these results, and the importance will more concerned the value, like for example the economies realized, or the decrease of the obesity, the percentage of decrease of the obesity among children, for this concrete example. And yes, I can also understand that it's not easy for a researcher to figure out these impacts, which will also arrive probably some years after the end of your project. And so for this, ask dedicated support services from your host institution to help you. These services usually know the Marie Skłodowska-Curie grants, and they know how to write these parts. So ask them to help you with estimating the KPIs and providing the indicators to justify the impact. And so in this part, you will actually indicate what you target as impacts, as changes. And then you will also have in the implementation part, so this will be done, you will explain this in the impact part of your proposal. And then in the implementation part of your proposal, you will also describe different work packages of your proposal. And we strongly advise to put to include dissemination, communication, and exploitation work package. And in this work package, you can plan some deliverables. When you plan the deliverables, please be realistic, because when you indicate here the KPIs, of course, it's not easy to attend. You cannot engage yourself on that your project will lead to the decrease of obesity among children by, I don't know, 15%. You cannot put this as a deliverable. Okay, so your deliverables will be actually results for scientific work packages, and for dissemination and exploitation work packages will be different dissemination and exploitation activities that you plan to put in place to address actually the targeted impacts, to achieve the targeted impacts. Question 12, do you recommend to include some communication activities as a part of training in case, for example, I haven't a lot of experience to communicating with large public audience? Yes, definitely. If you do not have experience in this, it will be a very good point if you plan some training on it. And if you have experience, you should emphasize it in your proposal, and it can be also a positive point for you. Is the timeline research also required to be fit into the proposal? So I'm not sure I understand the question. If you are talking about the Gantt chart, yes, you must include the Gantt chart in your proposal. But if it's not a Gantt chart, so maybe you can explain. Is the person here who asked this question? Can you activate your mic and explain?
Yes, if the person who has posed that question is here, if he or she could just write it again in more refined the question in the Q&A chat box, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So while waiting for this person to explain the question, I will move to to the next question, 14. Additionally, can field work, animal behavior study in another country or region be considered? Yes, you can have indeed field work activities in the frame of your project, which can also take place in any other country or region. Question 15, I'm interested to apply for MSCA Fellowship in high energy astrophysics. Could you let us know which astronomy institutes in France participate in the present MSCA PF call 2022? Actually, all institutes are authorized to participate, so you can contact if you have identified some supervisor somewhere through the publications, you can contact this person and suggest to submit a proposal for this call with this supervisor. And otherwise, if you are looking for astronomy institutes in France, you can first check the CNES website. CNES is the major research organization in space research in France. I put here the name. So you can also check at the CNRS site, which has some labs working on these questions in this area, but usually the institutes which have CNES as which work in the area of astrophysics, almost all of them have CNES as one of supervising institutions. So if you go to CNES website, you will be able to identify the majority of French institutes in the scientific area, and then you can contact the identified supervisor and introduce your project. So for 2022 call, it's probably too late now if you do not have yet identified supervisor and host institution. It will be better if you apply next year then. And otherwise, you can also check the expressions of interest on the Euraxess platform. So some institutes registered their expressions of interest on this platform. So which are the institutions which are which had some proactive behavior to attract the foreign postdocs, but it doesn't mean that the others are not eligible. All institutes are eligible. Okay. So now I move to the question 16. If the long-term goal of the candidate is just providing quality education to everyone, then will the proposal still be considered? Actually, the idea is that this fellowship must be a kind of springboard for you to help you to achieve your career objectives. And so these career objectives may be different. You may aim an academic career, you may aim work in industry or an international organization, or you may aim the career in education. And if it is exactly what you want, and if it is necessary to have this project in order to embrace such career, so the answer is yes. So your proposal will be considered. And there is the last question remaining. How important is the ethical aspect, and is it necessary for every proposal, even if it doesn't involve participation of human test subject? If your proposal raised some ethical issue, okay. Okay, so the answer is actually, if your proposal raised some ethical issues listed in the part A, which do not only concern the human test, and I will go to this part of the proposal now to show you the questions. So there are the questions, of course, concerning the human participants, but also animal testing, data. So I'll share my screen. Okay, you can see here that there are different sections in the ethical questionnaire. There are human embryonic stem cells, human participants, human cells, personal data, animals, participation of non-EU countries, and for example, bringing samples from non-EU countries, part concerning the environment, health and safety, artificial intelligence, and other ethical issues. So you should just go through this questionnaire and try to honestly answer to all these questions, and it is quite possible that your proposal does not raise any ethical issue, and in this case there is absolutely no problem. You just answer no to all of these questions, and if then the evaluators have some doubts, they can go back to you and try and ask you to provide some additional information concerning some points. But it is absolutely no problem if your project doesn't raise any ethical issues. It's quite normal that not all projects have ethical issues, and the idea is of this questionnaire and of the information that is requested is that in case your project raise some of those issues, in this case you should explain how you deal with them. All right, so the questions are over now. So now it's time to take some questions from the chat, or if yeah, I didn't answer correctly, or if I didn't probably understand well some of your questions, in this case, don't hesitate to formulate it differently and to ask it again in the chat box.
Thank you so much, Eugenia. Really well, thoroughly presented by you again, and I think the questions have been satisfactorily answered. If not, please, we still have a possibility, some minutes more, where we have Eugenia live on air. And Eugenia, more questions, of course, have come in, as you can imagine, and I will try to go through them as far as we get, of course, keeping always one eye at the clock. Eugenia, the first question we hear is from one participant. She would like to have a clarification regarding the deliverable, as it is a bit unclear this time. In Horizon Europe, unlike Horizon 2020, a deliverable had to be a report sent to EU or RIA. So can a peer-reviewed publication or any other non-academic article be included under a deliverable in the Gantt chart?
Yes, sure. Yes, so there will be indeed. So the deliverable is actually what you get after performing some task, and a deliverable is something that you can something material that you can show and submit. For example, organizing a conference is not a deliverable, but the reports from this conference or some recommendations from this conference will be a deliverable, because it's something that you can show, submit, send. Okay, and for each of your tasks, you will need to, when possible, you will need to plan the deliverables. And please also note that there are also some mandatory deliverables that you can find a list of it in the work program and also in the handbook I sent to you. For example, data management plan or personal career development plan. So during your project implementation, there will be a continuous reporting process, which means that as soon as you get some deliverable, you must submit it through the participant portal to the European Commission. And also, there will be reports which are part of periodic reporting, and for postdoctoral fellowships, there is only one periodic reporting at the end of the project. So there you will just write a document about the work performed in the frame of your project.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Eugenia. Eugenia, the next question, I think you already gave a clear answer on that last time, but just maybe to repeat it for our participants, is the secondment an essential criteria for the proposal or not?
No, the secondment must be if you it is optional, okay? So, and it must be relevant and useful for your project. If it is not useful to have a secondment, then do not bring any artificial secondments. It will be on the contrary, it will be a bad point if you have just some artificially brought secondment. But of course, if you need for your project, for example, to deal with some data which is not accessible from your host institution and you need to go to another place to get this data, or if you need to get some competencies and the laboratory in another country has necessary expertise on it, and these competencies are not present in your host institution, so then the secondment can be useful, but just if not, you do not try to invent it.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a very clear answer. A bit of a tricky question. I'm not sure if you can answer that, but one of the participants is asking, can I exempt a reviewer to review my proposal? If so, how to do that? Is that an option?
No, here with the postdoctoral fellowships, differently from the ERC, there is no such a possibility. I had actually in my experience some cases, but which were quite serious cases linked to harassment. And in this case, we contacted the European Commission and asked some reviewer to be excluded from the evaluation of one concrete proposal, but it was quite exceptional and concerned very serious issue. Okay,
thank you for answering that. Another question, I think it was something also we had in the previous, but I still think it's important because one attendee says, I have completed my PhD in 2016. Now I'm working as a writer for more than 5 years. Am I eligible now to apply for the postdoc? Will there be an impact on the selection process due to the gap I have between my PhD and now like the research gap, which is there after completing the PhD and wanting to go for a postdoc?
No, it is not a problem. If you have, so in 2016, you have less than 8 years after the PhD, and especially if you did not have a research experience, actually the time of period, the time of work spent outside research can be withdrawn from the calculation of the experience in research, but in your case there is even no need for it as you have less than 8 years after the PhD, and at evaluation this will be taken into account. You will not be judged in the same way that people who had for example, when they will check your publications and you have been working not in research for quite a long period, so you will not be judged in the same way as somebody who was working in research actually.
Eugenia, prior there used to be a reintegration panel one could submit to the proposal. That was for people who had a gap between their PhD or a gap of research due to maternity leave or other activities. Is that still something like it's not there anymore?
No, there is no more. Yeah, actually, before there were two panels. One was a career restart panel for people who had career breaks or working experience outside research.
Right.
And there was also a reintegration panel, which were for people who want to go back to EU from third countries, and this was only addressed to EU nationals or long-term residents. So now both these panels do not exist anymore, and they have been replaced by the incitement measures, which are actually which consists in the fact that the career breaks can be withdrawn from the calculation of maximum 8-year experience, and the same for reintegration for people who go back from the third countries to EU, but this will only concern the people who are EU nationals or long-term residents.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for clarifying that. There's another question regarding the B1 part. What is the call identifier and call name in the B1 template?
Yes, you will find it actually on the proposal on the call page. It is the call identifier is like I will tell you right now. I'll go to the call page and tell you. So the call identifier is Horizon MSCA 2022 PF01. I will share my screen and show you. So this Horizon MSCA 2022 PF01 is a call identifier, and the call name is MSCA-Postdoctoral Fellowships 2022, which is before the brackets.
Okay. Can one have more than one supervisor in the same institute?
It is not necessary. So you have only one identified supervisor for in the administrative forms, but you will need to indicate one supervisor. You can, of course, also have kind of secondary supervisor, which will not be identified as such in administrative forms, but you can describe his or her role in your proposal. And in this case, just you will have to explain what is the difference between the expertise, why do you need two supervisors, and also explain in more details the practical arrangements for supervision and actually the added value of having these two supervisors.
Okay. Non-academic placement. Where to put all this information about the non-academic placements at the minimum in part B first. Also section 3 implementation. Do we need to put the non-academic placement months in the Gantt chart? Do we need to mention the non-academic placement in the work plan and give the milestones and deliverables related to it?
Yes, yes. So actually, if you have a non-academic placement, you have to explain it in the excellence part. And in the implementation part, indeed, you need to include it in the project timeline and describe the work that you plan to do during this placement. For the impact, also explain the added value of the placement. And finally, in the part B2, you need to describe the placement host. And you will also need to add this placement host in the A forms on the participant portal, and the placement host will also you just include it in the A form, and you will provide a table in the B2, the table concerning the placement host. Was it clear?
Yes, yeah. I was just also looking, there are so many questions coming in and we just have 5 minutes left. So I was just looking for which questions we can still collect, which have a bit of would be appealing to many. Could you please again explain a bit the main differences between exploitation, dissemination, and communication of results?
Yes, sure. So exploitation is how you and your host institution will use the project results. This use can be for commercial exploitation or for education and teaching purposes. The exploitation is also actually linked to the protection of intellectual property. For example, if you plan the commercial exploitation, if some patenting is considered, you should explain how you will deal with this, and just ask professionals from your host institution to help you with this. Because especially if you go to the country where you do not know the rules for intellectual property, you will need to have some support on these issues. So then dissemination is how you will transmit the project results to potential end users outside your consortium, so outside your host institution actually. So here you must think an exhaustive list of potential end users, which may be from academic or non-academic sector, and you will go to to plan the different measures to communicate the results of your project to these people, these stakeholders. And communication is about to raise awareness of the large public on the topics which are raised by your project. So it's not only about results, but just about your research area. And this is why the dissemination and exploitation activities will happen at the end of the project, because they are linked to the project results, while the communication activities can take place all along the project duration, because they concern all the project and not only its results.
Okay. Eugenia, we had this one question in the beginning about the deliverables, the reports. Now, the same participant is asking, can a peer-reviewed publication or any other non-academic article be included under a deliverable in the Gantt chart?
Yes, it can, but just putting this as a deliverable will engage you. So you must be sure that you will have a publication. So probably if you are not sure if, for example, Nature will accept your publication, be maybe just less specific, or just indicate it as peer-reviewed publication, or in highly ranked journal, because deliverables is engaging for you. So of course, if there is some delay in providing this deliverable, you can justify, but just be careful with the engaging character of the deliverable. But otherwise, yeah, publication typically is a kind of expected deliverable.
Okay. And what is the difference between milestones and deliverables? Could you tell us
Yes, that? So deliverables are your project results, and they are something that you can provide and submit to show that you had these results. And milestones are some important points, important moments in the project life. For example, organizing a conference, if this is a very strategic and important conference, can be a milestone, while the conference recommendations can be a deliverable.
Okay. We take two more questions, okay?
Okay.
Eugenia, is that okay? What if the project does not include open science elements? The proposal of the participant is in the field of literary studies.
Okay, so for open science, you have some mandatory elements, which are data management plan, open data, and open publication in open science journals, open access to publications, and of course, there are also some other recommended practices, but if it's difficult for you to implement these practices, it is not a major problem, but still, actually, you can have publication, for example, preprints or participation in open peer-reviewed procedures, which are recommended practices, and it does not depend on the project area. You can, unless there is something very protected by with potential important intellectual property issues. So in this case, probably it might be difficult to implement some open science practices. But if your project is on literature, I think that you can still consider implementing some not mandatory but recommended open science practices. Okay.
Two very short questions we're taking now, because I'm seeing that the participants are really wanting that answer. They're writing it. So if the host institution does not have any experience with a fellow in the past, will that impact the proposal selection proposal? Like, is there an impact if the institution doesn't have a MSCA fellow from before?
No, it happens that people just contact the supervisor they never knew before and submit proposals which are retained. Of course, if you already have previously been working with your supervisor, can be a positive point, which will be kind of proof of your capacity to work together, that it will work out well, that you have a good contact with your supervisor. But if you did not work previously with this supervisor or this institution, it doesn't mean that it will not work. Okay. So in this case, you should probably argue and explain, try to explain more the complementarity between your profile and why it is so important for you to work exactly with this supervisor, and probably also show the that the organization is experienced in hosting foreign researchers, so you will have no problem to settle down and to be integrated into the lab team.
Thank you, Eugenia. Last question. It's not possible to expand the proposal to 5 years, right? It's a 2 years postdoc. No. You cannot argue that you need 5 years funding.
No, it's absolutely not possible. The only possibility to extend is the non-academic placement, which will add you 6 additional months at the end of your project, but otherwise, no, it's absolutely not possible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. The 60 minutes are over. We are even a bit beyond that, but I think that was fine. Eugenia, we have been like really shooting a lot of questions to you in the last 2 webinars. Thank you so much for answering each of them so patiently and so explicitly and very precisely. It has been a great pleasure to have you with us. Wouldn't you agree, Shantala?
Absolutely, Samrat. I think Eugenia, you're given such a complete picture to, I mean, questions which might seem, small to participants can make a big difference when you're putting an application together. So I think it's great that you kind of with a fine-tooth comb, you went through question 1, question 2. I think it was really great. And I think for all those of you who attended, I think it also shows that all the majority of the questions that came in were kind of captured and answered either directly as a question or they were pulled together. So I think you're all very, very lucky to get, such an in-depth discussion of an application call that's, soon coming to an end. And I hope this kind of inspires you, motivates you, prepares you, to put forward a stronger application this year or maybe next year. I mean, Yeah,
thank you very much. I was also very pleased to participate to these 2 webinars and to talk today. And thank you for organizing these webinars, which I'm sure are very useful for participants. If you did not if you have any other questions, so I'll be talking to participants. If you still have some new questions that will appear, please check the handbook. You will find a lot of information in this document. And otherwise, you can contact the NCP in the country where you will be applying in. So I will probably put here a link.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
So while Eugenia is putting the link of the NCP contact list, let me, on behalf of Euraxess and India Biosense, again, thank you all for joining us. We really hope that this has helped you a step closer to completing your application for those who are planning to apply for this year's call. For those of you who are applying for 2023, this is a very good starting point for you. And of course, Euraxess, we and India Biosense, we are here for you to help you also for the future endeavors which you have under the Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellowship. A big thumbs up, of course, I'm seeing from your side. Thank you so much. We really hope to see many excellent applications coming in and many of you being selected and being a Marie Curie Postdoctoral Fellow. And please stay connected with us. And yeah, less than a month to go for those who are applying. All the best and wishing you all a productive afternoon here in India and a good lunchtime in Europe. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much and good luck to all candidates for the upcoming weeks.
Thank you all.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.